Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Rabbids Go Home for the Nintendo Wii/Nintendo DS, by the forms of different versions of the entirety of the game. So, last time we actually did manage to completely done with, let's just say the intro stage, and the forms of the very first level in the forms within Rabbids Go Home, and that's the forms of Shop Until You Drop. And by the forms of the very first level for not only for the entirety of the game, but also by the forms of the very first level in Area 1. Because we'll say that is because, well, we'll discuss more into that as soon as we get into the main purpose of this episode. So, yeah, today for this episode, for this point, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that we're going to be, eventually trying to able to gather as many of those piles as we can until we're able to actually go through the next couple of missions, and eventually we would able to actually just do whatever we wanted to. See, even then, yeah, I guess there's not much else I can really talk for this point, folks, other than, once again, I do apologize by the forms of the lack of uploading schedule in normal time, just because, well, ladies and gentlemen, I really do apologize by the forms of the, we really do apologize after the events of the disappearance of the forms of, after the events of the moving day and stuff, but hopefully when it gets to later videos and stuff like that, hopefully we'll get back into business. Even then though, that, by the forms of, like, uploading one video per day, so even then though, that no need to worry about the forms of, like, 2 videos uploaded per video, and sometimes that we always attempt to do that sometimes, but the forms of, like, in certain Mario Party installments, and all that shenanigans and stuff like that, but even then, that's just how I figured it is. So, oh my god, we got attacked by these dogs! But even then, we'll get to the actual, dogs cutscene when we're able to actually just to move on to the next couple of levels ahead. So even then, though, that, you get the idea. So, anyways, though, as you can see, this is the forms of a somewhat of a hub world of a game, and as you can see, that we're going to be exploring through the center city. See, Fernando, that there's not much else we can do around here, other than we can able to actually just get even more collectibles, like stuff and all that stuff, like XL size means extra small stuff, and XL stuff. So naturally speaking, that you can able to actually find them in everywhere, like normally you can able to get them that is clearly visible, and another emphasis that you can able to find them is by simply we need to able to just trying to able to find them by the forms of like some townspeople to mess around with, and especially noticeable with these hidden areas. So, yeah, you can spend most of your time there, unless if you're able to try to get even more items throughout the entirety of the game, but even then though, the actual main focus of the actual game itself is obviously going through levels and gather even more items, due to the forms of the main levels themselves, or the missions I should say. So, yeah, about these little present icons, that we'll get more details onto that later, because for now on though, naturally speaking, how the fact that, well, as far as you already know, is that today was actually formed of, the 10th of November in 2018, so naturally, recently today, that Mario Party, the top 100, at least in the United States of the American version of the game, it's now a year old, so I can't believe the time itself just went really fast. But even then, either way though, that's not much else you can really think about. And I believe this also same applies by the forms of like, although, to be fair, we've only got about ourselves by the forms of 2 days to go until we're able to actually get ourselves by the forms of the 8th year anniversary of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo Wii and Nintendo DS. So, that was worth bringing up. So, yeah. Quite shocking for that little kinds of stuff. How, time itself just went fast and very quick. Especially noticeable how, things do able to actually add up something new around here. So, anyway, so this is the actual world map looks like and stuff like that. So, the only level that we can only do at the moment is the forms of this level. So, in the nick of time. Not to be confused as the minigame for Mario Party 8. In the nick of time.
Welcome to the People Company Enterprise Incorporated.
Alright, so this is how the actual main mechanic of this level introduces to ourselves, is the forms of those little water basins. And every time you actually just manage to grab one of them, chances are you might as well able to use them as a projectile. Like, for instance, for example, you can either stun these little dogs, as you can see right there, or oftentimes you can able to actually just get rid of these cactuses. Think of like get rid of the banana peel by the forms of green shells or red shells, or you name them all. It's kind of like that, except, well, it's just a completely opposite. So even then, we got to use that for the majority of the forms of the actual level itself, but not all the time though, just because of how the fact that there are still some segments that we have to go through for this point. So, naturally speaking though, that it's still pretty easy for the most part though, at least as far as in terms of the actual levels themselves, so, excuse me, and, again, there's not much else I can really talk about for this point, folks, other than, well, not much news related, unfortunately, but, you know what, when Sonic mentioned about this before, in the forms of Shadow the Hedgehog Let's Play that he's currently still doing, normally he did say about the fact that Nintendo Directs will eventually happen at some point. Well, still no sign of it yet. Well, other than it might be a bit too early to ask for that, just because, well, we still got the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Final Direct, so other than that, even though the entirety of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate stuff, announcement stuff, is not exactly completely done yet, because, you know, reveals of DLCs, and you know the rest. So, here's the fire hydrant here. They're just having a little bit of a thrill fun ride with the forms of those little fire hydrants, as you can tell. But I digress. So, few things want to explain is the fact that there's still no sign by the forms of Cap King 74 just yet though, other than that he's still obviously going back into The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for these days. And, that's all I can really think about. And speaking of such, that I just want to point things out right away, that when it comes to the uploading schedules by the forms of the actual Let's Plays themselves, we might as well able to actually go ahead and decide it that, well, a few things I want to explain about this actually is the fact that you know how the fact that we've already mentioned about this before, that we've recently got ourselves by the forms of not only Kirby Air Ride by the forms of the Nintendo GameCube, but also by the forms of Wario World as well. But we figured that we might actually go ahead and do something like completely related to Wario stuff until, like, I won't do it right about entering at the very end of the year, but definitely next year for sure. Most notably because of how the fact that we're really hoping that the next Wario Land series of games will make a comeback, because it's been about a decade since the last entry of the forms of the Wario Land series by the forms of the Shake Dimension, or Shake It if you will, if you guys lived in North America. But I don't know what that is though, probably because of how the fact that they seem to kind of wish if they gone back into its original roots or something like that for Wario Land, since Wario Land 4, or in this case, well, I don't know exactly for sure. And yeah, not to mention, we might as well decide to go through every single Wario Land games as a Let's Play series of Wario Land or Wario stuff in mind, and you know, you get the idea what the solutions for this point here.
Report to my office immediately.
I'll be right there, sir. Can't pee first, I guess.
Oh crap, looks like we've got ourselves 30 seconds to spare once we're able to actually make it in a nick of time, because even then, there are rare occasions in the forms of some levels that usually retains how the fact that sometimes you force you to able to actually deal with a little bit of a time limit system basically, and in order to actually just finish one of those segments is that we need to reach over to the finish line onto that yellow line, so that way it'll deal the job done. So there we go then. Anyways, let's go ahead and just give these little you know, clothings by the forms of any kind of people, even though they're kind of like, well, a humor to it, but I digress, even though I'm not exactly, I don't know what enthusiastic about that, but anyway. So let's go down, all the way down to this little spiral road here, or in this case a spiral path, and that way we could able to introduce to ourselves the forms of those little, you know, the green and red gates. But before we do that, here's this little device.
Please record your message.
Alrighty then, so it turns out it's actually the recorder of any sort, according to the forms of the actual, like, you can actually decide to record your voice onto that little voice box, which I thought was kind of convenient there. So even then, let's go ahead and, just go dash forward a little bit, and able to once again just try to take down as many of those, human counterparts of themselves right from the start, and, you know, self-explanatory for the most part though, so even then though, that's just all I can usually say about it, so... Anyway though, aside from the forms of, decided able to go for the Warrior Land series of Let's Plays, I'm also going to be including Warrior World for the GameCube, just because of how the fact that we might as well able to do that as a Warrior Marathon or something, but, we don't know exactly for sure if we might actually go back into the WarioWare series as far as... Well, usually we've already still done one already, but in forms of WarioWare Smooth Moves for the Nintendo Wii, but that is used to be a celebration, but in forms of our 1000 video special back in 2013. But I don't know if we can able to actually redo that Let's Play, kind of think about it though, see if I know. We'll figure this out though, but if it doesn't work out then... we'll probably go ahead and deal with every single WarioWare stuff. Well, not all of them, mind you, because WarioWare Twisted is usually utilizes the gyroscope controls and all that stuff, and is meant to be playable in the forms of the actual Game Boy Advance systems, and also by the forms of, I would say WarioWare Gold as well, but in forms of the Nintendo 3DS, including WarioWare DIY, do-it-yourself for the DS, and, well, we did manage to able to do the Wii version, or the WiiWare version, just fine enough, but, I don't know if we can able to actually do with the WarioWare series for the time being, so for the sake of reasons, we probably might as well do Warrior Land series until for next year, until whenever... if Nintendo decide to able to announce the next Warrior Land sequel, which I'm really hoping for that, because even then though sometimes you're always trying to go through like one thing at a time, so pretty convincing for my say-so for myself there. Alright, here's the third and final section for this point right there, and you know, it's just a matter of able to actually get to the very end. I highly recommend you don't go for every single item sometimes, because if you somehow went too slow on these kinds of sections like so, basically you have to go all the way back to the forms of the beginning portion of that specific obstacle course. So, but it's worth bringing this up. So, screw it, I'm not going to go for that one over there. Come on. And, oh, 1 second to spare. Nice. Even though that, it could imagine how the fact that, if it gets like 0 seconds or something, then that will be a very close call, go and think about it. So here's the actual, like, mandatory item in this level, which appears to be by the forms of a clock, which we can hopefully grab a hold of, and we can able to now move along. So, self-explanatory for the most part. But if you think about this actually becomes over and done with, well, turns out we have another time limit, which appears to be more accurately, like, I don't know what you would call it, how the time limit usually activates on that section. But either way, let's go ahead and just continue forward a little bit, and hopefully we don't miss any of those items, even though, as I said this before, about the fact that we might try our best if we're able to get as many of those items, though, enjoy the likes of in any kind of levels or in one run-through, but we don't know exactly for sure just yet. So, anyways though, here's that little clock, barely fits in the toilet, like so, despite the fact that the toilet seat was actually incredibly small, but even then though, hey, I believe in order to actually get the forms of, like, 4 presents all in one go, is that you need to collect about 900, 900 stuff. I don't think you can get anything rewarding if you manage to reach into the maximum amount by the forms of 1000, aside from that, the best ranking you get in the forms of majority of the levels themselves, so even then we'll get more details onto that once you're able to, place the clock into the actual stack. And as soon as we think that scene was over, well, we still have to go through this particular somewhat of a loading screen scene, which I kind of wish there was actually a skipping. Okay, there is a skipping sequence. So thankfully though, that if you already seen that scene like loads and loads of times, then simply just press the A button while doing so. So before you're able to continue on the other hand though, this is where the actual like this particular other option comes into play about the fact that, you know, with the forms of getting started up, but the forms of the actual game, you can able to customize your very own Rabbids, which means you can able to actually equip by the forms of 5 different catalogs. But even then, this is what the actual gift presents comes into play, you know, with the ranking system we've on about in the majority of the levels themselves. In order to actually get 100% through everything in the entirety of Rabbids Go Home, is that you have to able to actually gather as many of those presents if you really want to get every single customizable items. See, even then though, that that's what I really think about when it comes to able to actually completely done with everything in the forms of you know, Rabbids Go Home and stuff. And however, there's one thing I'm also able to do, for as you can tell by the forms of the actual footage I'm going to do. I'm going to able to create myself by the forms of the Rabbids piglets, such as myself. You know, the ones with the character from Winnie the Pooh series. So I thought to myself that I might as well able to just do that anyway. Even though I wasn't exactly green anymore, unlike the old days that I seem to have green body. But in the modern series of stuff, that I'm most likely going to be like pink most of the time. So even then though, that maybe seems illogical. But anyways, you can do all sorts of things by the forms of your Rabbids design, like the forms of you know, just trying to spray paint your Rabbid, and occasionally, if you manage to able to actually spray onto its armpits sometimes, then you can able to do it from here. See, Fernando, you know how the forms of the customization works with the forms of, take games like, you know, Rayman Raving Rabbids that utilizes the costumes and stuff, and that could be the same applies for Rayman Raving Rabbids too. But I don't know exactly, but although in Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party also does that as well. But normally some people calls Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party Rayman Raving Rabbids 3, just because it's the third entry of the forms of the Raving Rabbids party games and stuff. But even then though, that since that you know, Rayman is not going to be involved with the forms of the Raving Rabbids series anymore, just because of how the fact that Rayman has entirely give up on those particular, you know, characters like Rabbids, for instance. See, Fernando, that's entirely up to him for this point. So, yeah, that's as far as I can usually say about the forms of my experiences by the forms of the actual Raving Rabbids series. They are pretty fun in its own right. Sure, they did have some little bit of a questionable stuff, mainly forms of the actual Kinect game, by the forms of Alive and Kicking, which I believe I've heard about that game, but I haven't really exactly played on that, just because, well, obviously if you guys can clearly tell, much like Sonic Free Riders, is that I don't have my Xbox 360 Kinect, because it's kind of stupid if you ask me. And second reason is the fact that I refuse to able to actually get the Kinect whenever managed to able to still recording some stuff upstairs, because if you probably did not know already, is the fact that I think I've already mentioned about this before in a previous video, is that I've recently managed to unplug the forms of my Sega Saturn recently, because I don't think there's any games I can probably get for the time being for the Sega Saturn other than Sonic Jam. And although I definitely know there's definitely Nights into Dreams in there somewhere, but I haven't really decided to plan that out yet. But even then, and also same applies for Sonic R as well, even though granted, despite the fact that I've already got Sonic R due to Sonic Gems Collection compilation, and especially noticeable with the forms of, you know, Sonic 3D Flicky's Island for the forms of the Saturn version, where I've already got the Mega Drive version by the forms of Sonic Mega Collection compilation. So that far as well saying for this much for that little department there. So yeah, there's not much else I can really think about. So anyway, so yeah, as you can see that I've pretty much got every single replica of myself. Well, most of the time though, really, even though there's only one little exception, which might be pretty difficult to able to actually recreate. Although before I do that, on the other hand, though, I need to do a nice little finishing touch to able to actually add some color onto my forehead real quickly, and also by the forms of these ears as well. even though it might be exactly not the most evitable reincarnation of me in the forms of the actual Rabbid formation, unlike the forms of you know, the Winnie the Pooh universe. But even then, no, that's as far as I can usually say when it comes to my commentary and stuff. So, plus you already know about the forms of my file selection screen. So, well, at least in the beginning of the game, though, kind of thinking about it. Alright, so I think that's it from here, and now it's to the difficult part, by the forms of the stripes itself, because normally I still have stripes with me. So, yeah, you can definitely tell by the solutions here. So, one thing I need to mention about this right away is the fact that sometimes my game attempts to stutters every once in a while, especially when cutscenes comes to play. I don't know why it is, because of how the fact that it might seems to take a little bit of some time to load things up. Like here, for instance, how the fact that sometimes that the actual stripe paint job were able to actually decide to load up, but unfortunately that's not the case for this point here. So either way, let's go ahead and just carefully place that, even though I'm not exactly a pure artist when it comes to like artists, you know, the actual like simulator stuff. But I think I might be okay with that. But it's just that, as you can see, I've messed up completely by the forms of the actual center part. And as a result, that it just takes a lot of practice before you're able to actually just do every single part of it. But even then, let me know in the comments below about the fact that this could be very convenient though, because this is before when DeviantArt exists, where the forms of the custom-made characters on screen and stuff like that, and able to actually recreate ourselves by the forms of the different form. So that's first worth mentioning. So I think that's it for the most part as far as the actual stripes go. But again, I do apologize for my skill by the forms of the actual stripe section, because I still find that to be quite difficult to pull off, because, you know, it's all about the matter of the actual angle. And I think the problem with that is that for some reason my sensor bar is going all over the place these days, especially noticeable how the fact that if I want to able to, you know, like create something new to it, then I don't know what it is though, but either way, I think that's why I can get some tensions there. So anyway, let's go ahead and just get rid of this black stuff here, even though, again, it's not the most adequate way for able to actually, you know, just trying to mess things up with my artistic approach for, you know, the Rabbid version of me. So, yeah, I think it should be alright, at least in terms of the actual finishing project goes. But, and then we'll just place some of this stuff from down here, I think. I think it might be alright, at least as far as I'm hyped. But even then, let's just go ahead. Oh yeah, this could be used by the forms of the undo and redo options. So if you probably remember from the forms of like computer programs like, you know, Paint and stuff, you probably recognize those particular familiar icons before. So yeah, that might get the idea away. I do apologize by the forms of the middle part of the video is getting way too long, especially noticeable because I was more addictive to the forms of like, you know, just trying to able to create my own variation of myself with this. But it is kind of cool though to able to actually explore around the inside portion of the Wii remote, just because you see that at least every time you press any of those buttons, that as you can tell, that one of the buttons is actually being indicated while pressed, as you can see on the background, which is kind of cool if you ask me. But even then though, that's the only cool part about the forms of this particular customizable mode. Well, in terms of the actual making your own variation of the Rabbid itself. So, actually, before you undo with all that stuff, I'm also able to... Oh, that is very out of place right there, even with the actual nose itself. Even though it might be unnecessary to able to add the nose like this, but I think it might be alright with it. But if it comes out of place, for those of you who haven't not noticing, then I'm also able to change back into its, you know, its normal self. So, there we go. We've actually created myself the Rabbid Piglet. Well, as far as the actual, like... the patterns and stuff, even though that, well, all except is left is the forms of the actual black eyes, but that's not the point. So, that's about it, obviously. If you're pretty much done with this for the most part, though, simply just hit the exit, icon. So, that's what I can really think about. So, and no matter what, though, I'm pretty sure the third rabbit from the right doesn't really seem to join in as much. I'm assuming so for that anyway. But anyways. Alright, so that does it for that level done. And now let's move on to... I'm presuming I might as well do one more level in this video. And then until the next video, we were definitely going to have to wrap things up with Area 1 pretty much. So here we go with the Infectious Blues. I do apologize by the forms at the beginning. What's name, but I digress. Infectious Blues. And this is going to take place in the forms of the hospital, just because you know how the fact that the actual item of this level we need to acquire is the forms of that particular, well, a breathable airbag or something? I don't know exactly for sure. I'm not a hospitality kind of expert, but either way though, it's just my personal preference here. Okay, so it looks like one of the Rabbids did manage to communicate the actual dogs. What is this, like Fluttershy? Just only kidding. I'm not gonna mention about that again, but even then though, that could be something related to what Fluttershies normally do, like communicating animals and stuff, but I digress. So yeah, here's another mechanic I forgot to mention, is the fact that you can able to point the Wii Remote at the screen, as you can see right here, and then press the Z button once you're able to actually doing the shooting mechanic, and that way you can able to actually just take down the cage. So that's about it, obviously. So yeah.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. I'm Betty, and I'll be looking after you from now on.
Huh? You're Betty? I'm Barney. Our names both start with B. Now that bodes well.
Okay, so here's the actual main item of this level though. Even though, despite the fact that you know in the forms of the level introduction to the forms of the actual level, basically that what happens is the fact that one of the humans is actually inside the actual like an you know, that particular air thing or something like that. Again, I'm not exactly a hospitality expert, so I really do apologize for that. But anyways though, here's the main mechanic or the main gimmick of this level, is that as you can see, sometimes we get ourselves this little green stuff all over the floor. The reason being for that is because we need to able to use that particular cleaning bot until you're able to actually decide to proceed to later on throughout the level. Which even then though, we'll get to more details onto that as soon as the actual next couple of sections. But even then, we'll go ahead and just do that when we're able to actually traverse through the offices. Well, not so much for the offices, but in the forms of the actual like rest beds for any kind of you know, casual, or in this case a capital or anything like that. I don't know. I really do apologize by the forms of the actual dialogue for this point, folks, because again, I'm not exactly a hospitality expert, but even then, that's just my personal preferences by the forms of different personalities and sometimes hobby differences anyway. So, anyways, though, let's go ahead and just take care of this little doctor nurse or something like that. And hopefully that, what makes it kind of cool about this level though is that, as you can see, we can actually jump onto the forms of someone else's bed, and oh, there's another center here. So, Father Christmas, ho ho ho! Because yeah, if you couldn't tell already by the forms of how the fact that, despite the fact that we've only got a month left until Christmas and stuff. So, and yes, Christmas special and then this particular year is still going to be happening, but even then though, that's as you might expect it by the forms of you know, YouTube videos these days. We're always trying to put up with Christmas videos in every single year. So, even then though, we might as well able to try and figure out able to actually get ourselves... I think we should probably go ahead and I'll say this right now, that I think I should probably go ahead and just do a redubbed version of the forms of the 2012 counterpart of the Christmas video special. But I'm not entirely sure on that though, but even then though, we'll figure that one out as soon as we're able to actually get the time being. So even then though, yeah. Okay, let's grab these couple of bits and bobs here and there. Unfortunately though, since we actually did miss on for quite a few items from the previous area, after able to actually like before going down onto the actual lift or the elevator, I get the horrible feeling that I think I'm actually missing on quite a few items, so that sucks. Oh well, no big deal. But hey, at least we can able to actually gather as many of those stuff. I believe the only highest amounts of the actual stuff you can actually get into is the forms of 23,000 feet. So, yeah, that's the only maximum you can only get up to. Alright, so here's the forms of the actual item right here on this level though, but we need to able to figure out the another way we can actually get to this particular point. Well, at least specifically we need to able to figure this out. So, actually before we continue from here, we need to use these little fans before we're able to proceed to the next point of the level, and we need to able to actually shoot down those little, you know, the electronic radio stuff, and hopefully we can able to actually, like, gather even more stuff, and eventually we can able to actually just, well, gather more things. That's all like really matters to me for the most part, so, and there's no cutscenes happening once you grab that, so I don't think there's anything that important for that, so, unless in the couple of items later that we could able to potentially try to able to, you know, see the actual other scenes throughout, by the forms of the Rabbids' reactions to the forms of every single item. But even then though, that's only because of how the fact that one thing I need to mention about this right away is the fact that despite the fact that how Sonic didn't do the actual audio balancing stuff by the forms of the recording sessions on Shadow the Hedgehog, but thankfully though, in this particular Let's Play and onwards, we think we might actually go ahead and do the audio balancing issues that we've pointed out by the forms of the very beginning of that specific year in 2011 back in the day. Like, the way and how the fact that if the cutscenes actually triggers, then we can able to actually increase our volume up, and the voices can be utilized for a combination of not only for the gameplay footage, but also the voice commentary audios here and there as well. So, I think that's worth mentioning though, and, well, for a lower, volume, but when it comes to the game footage and stuff, so anyways though, let's go ahead and just get these more piles of stuff here, and we need to able to actually land onto these little, this is what this actual cleaning bot comes into play in this particular section. Basically, if you manage to able to get your wheels covered in like a green saucy food and stuff, what happens is though, is the fact that as you can tell, that basically that every time you actually spill something from the floor, the cleaning bot were able to actually come over and decide to able to clean everything up. So even then, and some doors may actually lead you to the forms of like, the forms of the accessible door, but in order to actually get through that door, as you can see, then we need to able to guide the forms of the cleaning bot onto that specific room. So that's how the main gimmick about this level, as far as this is concerned of. So even then though, that should be, you know, self-explanatory. And if you run into the forms of the water, basically you get cleaned up all by yourself. So even then though, that should be, you know, pretty worth mentioning. In fact, this particular dustbins, specifically these yellow ones right there, they kind of feels a bit similar when it comes to these particular icons, which are represented by the forms of the Triforce from the Legend of Zelda series, which I don't know exactly if that's possible, but let me know in the comments below if that's been true or not. So anyways though, if you think the level itself will about to be over and done with, well, there's still more of those clean bot sections, and we need to carefully guide our way to be able to avoid the water, because if we accidentally touch the water, then obviously we might as well have to restart the process again. So, but again, self-explanatory for the most part, especially in this section's case. So, yeah, that's what I can really usually just trying to talk about. However though, when you get to later portions of the levels themselves in this game offers, that not only do we able to actually just get ourselves even more stuff. What's down there? Oh jeez, there's a trap door. Oh jeez, I totally forgot about these little trap door obstacles here and there. But either way though, let's go ahead and stun that dog and hopefully trying to grab him. And I don't know why we got these little weird brown stuff that we've got after we able to actually, oh wow. We actually got hurt ourselves right there, but anyways. So yeah, no matter what though, until we get to like the later levels of the game, expecting that how the fact that most of the levels, later levels I should say, can able to actually force you to able to use that specific abilities once you're able to actually just proceed yourselves later on throughout the game. But expectingly, that how the fact that, you know, Alright, so we need to get ourselves a nice little dash going on right here onto that section. There we go. Until that way I can able to actually grab more of those stuff from down there. So anyways, let's go ahead and just continue on. And there we go. We actually reached to the actual item. And yeah, we can just simply just get on the ride on the actual, like, elevator. And it's kind of weird that you see the actual human itself is actually laying in there for this whole time, which is kind of convenient. So anyways though, from here, as soon as you're able to grab that item, that's what's cool about this particular item, as you can probably can tell, is that we can able to have the ability to able to jump. Now I've mentioned about this before at the beginning of the actual Let's Play of this, is the fact that I originally say about the fact that this game doesn't allow you to jump itself, but it turns out I was completely wrong, because as soon as you're able to discover this particular item, or that stuff, or the XL stuff, or I should say, you do have the ability to jump. However, though, you do actually have the ability to able to perform a triple jump, kind of like how it did in that pretty unnecessary ability in Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, that terrible freaking... I'm sorry, folks, it's just... I just can't stand that game. It's just, I'm not going to do a playthrough on it, and despite the fact, though, no one actually asked me to. So, that's a good start. Anywho, basically, in order to actually perform jumps in this particular, some segments noticing, because as you can see, we need to actually come across into those large chasms by the forms of the actual buildings, and sometimes leaps of faith. See, Fernando, in order to actually perform some jumps in this particular sections like so, is that you need to able to shake the Wii remote at the right time. However, though, you can only use it 3 times, because as you can see for this little puff of smoke icons, as you can see there, this actually represents how much jumps you make. See, Fernando, that's how it usually does, even by the forms of the limits, by the forms of those specific abilities like so. In fact, this particular city almost reminds me by the forms of New Donk City almost, even though that the New Donk City from Super Mario Odyssey was actually a little bit more modernized, and especially noticeable by the forms of how nicely polished that looked in the forms of the Nintendo Switch game. But I digress, enough about that topic. So, anyways, so let's go ahead and just get onto this little fans. Oh god! Oh crikey! This one makes the actual levels themselves starts to get pretty difficult, because as you can see that, you know, that I think I've already mentioned about this before, is the fact that the water itself can be acted out as slippery physics, kind of like the ice physics by the forms of certain platformer games these days. But because of how the way the matter is, though, I kind of like how it feels like it did by the forms of certain vehicles and stuff. But either way, though, here's the end of the level, just right down here, and let's just get these last few birds from that little, you know, the longest drop ever. So, in fact, we've actually made it. So, we've actually got the last 4 birds, and we are essentially accomplished with the actual main level. And how on earth is that gonna fit in right in there? And I believe the human... Oh, ow! It might actually break his bones. Oh, jeez. I felt bad for that particular human that got inside right there, because if he doesn't feel as well as he used to be, oh, jeez, I really felt sorry for him. In fact, if he managed to able to actually squish into the forms of, like, the actual toilet itself, he could have died by the forms of getting crushed. Jeez. But it's just a video game logic, so it doesn't really matter. So anyways though, now we've actually got that specific item right here, and yeah, as you can see, sometimes most of my cutscenes rendering just sometimes feels a bit struggling just to render itself. So yeah, I guess we'll end things off here, I'm afraid, guys. So yeah, join me next time, but Let's Play Rabbids Go Home is the fact that hopefully we can able to, you know, wrap things up by the forms of Area 1. So yeah, that's all I can really say about it. So yeah, see you guys next time. Later, fellas.